All right, good evening, and it should be evening because you should be watching this at home the night before we do our in-class activity tomorrow rather than watching this in class because you didn't watch it the night before. But anyway, good evening. So this is our first flipped classroom video. So as you know, you're going to watch this video and take notes. So please make sure that you're following along. Make sure you pause as I go through the slides. And also before we begin, I do want to touch on some things that I'm going to be looking for in your notes since I will be grading your notes. Now, sometimes I will go ahead and give you like a guided note-taking sheet. Sometimes I didn't do that this time because it wasn't that important for this particular topic, but I will point out some things that you're going to have to make sure that you have in your notes that I will be checking for. I will be checking for all of the headings, of course. I will also be checking for all of the vocab words, making sure that they are all highlighted and defined, right? And I will also be checking for things that I found to be very important in the slides. Now, everything I type, I feel is important, but I don't necessarily want you writing every single last thing that you see on the slide. I do want you to get the important bits. So I actually helped you out this time. I have underlined all the things that are the most important, right? So if we can at least have the most important things, then we're off to a good start. And again, maybe in the future, I will alter the notes to be fill in the blank and whatnot. But this time I didn't do that because I just wanted you to get used to watching the video and taking notes in general. So without further ado, I started my timer a little late. I might be like 11 minutes instead of 10 minutes, but that's okay. All right, so we're going to begin with chapter 2, actually. We'll discuss a little bit of chapter 1 in class tomorrow, but we're going to begin our notes with chapter 2, Empires in the Americas, right? Uh-oh, hold on. Okay, no, I was correct. Okay, so section 1, Europeans set sail. So again, this is a heading that you need to write down in your notes. You don't necessarily have to write down the main idea though, but I will go ahead and tell you that Europeans explored the world searching for new lands and new trade routes. I do want you to write down the standards, which are on the left-hand side here. These are things that you should be able to do by the end of this note-taking process, by the end of this video, right? This time they aren't necessarily standards by the state of Florida because I had to kind of tweak it a little bit. What we're discussing now isn't directly it isn't a direct standard for American history, right? But it is very, very, very important. So by the end of this video, you should be able to examine motivating economic factors that spurred the age of exploration. And you should be able to use appropriate geographic tools and terms, maps, we're gonna use maps, right? To identify significant places and regions. And again, by the end of this video, you should be able to use your notes in order to complete tomorrow's assignment. Now, the first people that reached North America were actually the Vikings, right? Not that Christopher Columbus dude who we'll learn about in another video. So the first Europeans to come to America were from Scandinavia. They were skilled sailors who created the long ship, which could travel across the Atlantic. So if you've ever seen, like, I don't know, if you've been to the carnival or something, you've seen that one ride that kind of swings like a pendulum, right? And it's usually Viking themed, right? That would be an example of a long ship. So that's what they used to travel across the Atlantic. They settled in Iceland in 874, and then Greenland under Eric the Red. So if you look at a map, which I don't have a picture of here, but if you look at a map, you have Europe, and then you have in the middle this giant piece of land, which is Iceland, and then Greenland, and it's under Eric the Red. Leif Erikson, vocab word, might want to write that down, might want to highlight it, right? Leif Erikson reached present-day Canada and Newfoundland. We should know where Canada is. It's above America, right? So Leif Erikson just means son of Eric, right? He's going to be the first European to actually reach present-day Americas. He settled in Vinland, but left after a few years because the colony he set up was getting attacked by natives on a regular basis, right? Remember, these people didn't discover new lands. People already lived here, okay? I do want us to understand that they just kind of reached these areas, but they didn't discover anything, right? So they were getting attacked by the people who already lived there. And it was too far away from his dad in Greenland and Iceland. So eventually they left. And then no other European is going to return until the 1400s. I'm sorry, I'm also trying to check the time. So fast forward all the way to the 1400s, right? So we go from 847, fast forward about 600 years or so, and now we have the early 1400s, and Portugal is going to start to lead the world in exploration. One of the reasons why they're able to do that is because of Prince Henry the Navigator. He is going to be an explorer who never explored anything, right? He actually will never leave the island of Portugal, not island, but the continent, right? Where Portugal sits, Europe. So he is going to still help spur exploration because he's going to build an observatory. He's going to find a school of navigation to teach better methods of sailing. So he's basically going to teach the people who will become the explorers, right? And he's also going to fund map making, shipbuilding, and expeditions. So he's just this really rich man who's never going to leave Portugal, but he's going to give other people money and the tools to leave Portugal and explore on his behalf. There's a few reasons why the Portuguese and the Europeans in general start exploring, right? And the main reason is riches in Asia. They had already been doing trade with Asia, oh my goodness, for quite some time, but they would have to do it over land, which is a very long, drawn out process, right? So some of the reasons to explore the world, again, they want Asian spices. They wanted to bypass the merchants who had a monopoly on them by finding a direct route to Asia, right? So if you were looking at a map, you would see Europe, and then you would see like Russia and China, and then like the rest of Asia with India and Southeast Asia, right? They would have to either A, travel through all of that to get to the spices, or B, pay people who already traveled all of that, right? So whereas salt might have been $1, I could either spend thousands of dollars traveling to India to get salt for $1, or I would have to pay a middleman, the merchants who had the monopoly on it, right? Who already did all the traveling. So maybe that middleman person bought the salt for $1. He's going to sell it to someone else for $5 to make a profit. They're going to sell it to someone else for $50 to make a profit. By the time it gets to me, this person is going to sell me salt for $100 because everyone's trying to make a profit, right? But what can I do? I can't get there myself, and Europe doesn't have no salt. Like when we make the joke about white people not like seasoning their food, they quite literally like couldn't. Like historically, Europe doesn't have spices, right? So yes, historically speaking, their food is very bland. The second reason is for religion, right? So Christians in Europe are going to want to convert more people. The dominant religion in a lot of the Asian countries would be like Hindu, maybe some Buddhist, maybe some Confucianism. Islam is very prevalent in a lot of the Asian countries, right? And so they're going to want to spread what I call white Jesus, right? And I'll kind of explain in class why I call it white Jesus, but they're going to want to spread Christianity. And lastly, Europeans are simply just interested in Asian culture and wanted to learn more, right? The queen and fancy people owned things like porcelain and silk, and they just went in on that. So they're going to go explore it too. There are a few technological advances that helped with all of this. So new technology is going to play a major role. One is going to be the astrolabe, which is a device that enabled navigators to learn their ship's location by charting the position of the stars. So like a compass, but for the stars, essentially. And then the other one is going to be a caravel, which is a new, smaller, lighter, easier to steer ship that used triangle sails that allowed ships to sail against the wind and had rudders in the back. So beforehand, they had to just move with the currents. Now they can move against the currents and actually go where they want to go, and a lot faster. So in order to get to Asia, right, we kind of, spoiler alert, there's no waterway through Europe and Asia to get to like India, right? So we're going to have to go around this giant continent, the largest continent called Africa. This is incredibly dangerous, right? And only a few people were able to successfully do so. So Bartholomew Diaz, his name's not in red because he's not technically a vocab word, but he is bolded because this chapter is loaded with important people that we're going to have to know. He's one of them, right? And notice I underlined this, so you might want to write it down. So Bartholomew Diaz, he rounded the tip of Africa thanks to some storm winds. So he kind of just got lucky, right? And so this is now called the Cape of Good Hope because, hey, Good Hope, you know, we're getting around Africa in 1488. And then Vasco da Gama, he's another Portuguese explorer who's going to reach southwestern India after a year out on the sea. So not only did he get around Africa, but he actually made it all the way to India. So now Portugal wins the exploration race. But when da Gama got to Calicut, India, the Muslims there already spoke Portuguese. And this is because they had been trading with the Italians for a very long time who already knew Portuguese, right? So again, these people aren't discovering anything, right? Trade was already established. People already lived here. Things were already happening. They were just trying to get there faster, right? So he was a little surprised because he's like, what? Y'all already know? Duh, dude. Congrats to you to making it, but we've been doing this for years now, right? But again, Bartholomew Diaz and Vasco da Gama will get around Africa. Da Gama is also going to make 2 more trips, and he's going to eventually govern a small colony in India, which will be very important if I was teaching European history, but not so important for us in American history. All right, so there were some important results of exploration. So we went through the reasons for it, and now these are the results of it. For one, this is going to start the Atlantic slave trade. We'll discuss in class tomorrow how there was already a trans-Saharan or West African slave trade happening, but now we're going to have the Atlantic slave trade, right? Because while these white guys are traveling around Africa, they're going to pick up a few Black people on the way. And then they're going to drop these few Black people off. And then boom, we have slave trade, right? So again, as they traveled the coast, they picked up gold, ivory, and slaves. This is going to have the effect of devastating African communities through increased warfare and breaking up families, which again, I'll discuss in greater detail tomorrow. Just know that it's bad. Slavery is bad. Other European countries are going to watch Portugal. So another result of Portugal exploration is that other European countries are now going to start exploring as well, because they want to get rich. They want to do what the Portuguese do. And now, obviously, like, everything's going to get worse. All right. So boom, I know I'm over time. I'm probably over by like 2 or 3 minutes. It's okay. At least now we know who the first Europeans were that reached the Americas, right? Hint, go back if you don't know. The new technology that helped drive exploration, hint, they were vocab words. Go back if you don't know. And some important people and explorers and their contributions. Again, go back if you didn't get that, right? But most importantly, the most important thing from this section, hint, it's gonna be on the test, is the reasons for why we explored, or not we, they explored, and the results of the exploration. Now what I need you to do, go back through your notes, make sure you have all the important bits, make sure that you have all the vocabulary, make sure you have the headings and the standard, right, on the I will be able to slide. Make sure your vocab is highlighted and defined and ready to go for me to check tomorrow. Boom.